these, which gets these guys aroused. And it's the same thing here with these traffickers. It's the control that's exerted over over these victims that keeps them going.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's exactly what we see in some of these girls. So when we see them start to recuperate and start to recover, um, they have to get over that hurdle. But these traffickers go after, because another form of control is drugs. They
Yes.
get these girls addicted, or they look for people who are already addicted to heroin or cocaine or something of that effect, and then they exacerbate that use of that drug to exert their control over them. We've had a lot of traffickers that and again, a lot of the information that I'm getting is directly from victims and it's directly from pimps. Because when we arrest a pimp, we charge a pimp, I don't care who you are, you don't want to go to jail for as long as they're potentially going to go to jail for. So the smart ones figure out that maybe if I cooperate, maybe I'll do less time. So we do these things called proffers, and that's where we get a lot of our information. That's when we start picking the brain of these traffickers to understand what's going on out here. How are they recruiting? How are they exerting their control over women? Um, uh, and that's where we're getting a lot of our information. But these traffickers, so when you're talking about someone to control, it's easy to control someone that's already addicted to something else. You just become their drug dealer. And so I have a young lady who's making $1,000 a day for me, and I'm only feeding her $100 a day in heroin. You know, that guy's turning a huge profit. And when you multiply that by not just one girl, but you have maybe four girls, now you're looking at, approximately $4,000 a day minus the heroin that you spend on them. So that's $4,000 a day multiplied by 5, 6, 7 days a week, depending on how hard they have them working, and you do the math. And this is why this is such a lucrative business. I mean, this has turned into, it fluctuates with, I think, number 3, number 2, and they flip flop between, guns and drugs. I'm sorry, guns and prostitution. That's why, all the old mafiosos back in the day you see in these movies, um, they controlled the numbers, they controlled the prostitution, because
Mm-hmm.
prostitution is so lucrative. You never have to re-up like you have to do with dope. You run out of drugs. You never run out of of exploiting a person. All you have to do is let them sleep for a few hours and give them a little bit of food and a roof over their head, and they can continue working. And if you're using some sort of a controlled substance to help control them, whether it be cocaine or heroin, you can do some sort of a mixture of those to keep them high and keep them up. At some point they will crash, but at that time you're sitting there counting your money. So those are the different types of pimps that we deal with out there. Um, we see these girls moving around the different cities. We used to classify these cities as kind of like an origin city and a destination city. An origin city would be someplace like Toledo or Cleveland or some small market area, if you want to think about it from a financial standpoint. So you recruit a girl from the country. We see a lot of girls, believe it or not, that have been recruited out of Erie and Sandusky counties. And for those who aren't familiar with Erie or Sandusky counties, it's kind of the opposite. Erie County is the city of Sandusky, and Sandusky County is the city of Fremont, which is all right off of I-90 on the way to Toledo.
Mm-hmm.
So you recruit a young girl who wants to get away and see the world from a small country town. And instead of prostituting her, you may begin to work her in a city like Toledo, but then you're going to move up to a bigger market where you can get more money. So you're going to move these young ladies to a place like New York or Las Vegas or Chicago, someplace with a large metropolitan population, where you're going to be able to get more for that particular girl. And if there's a child involved and they're underage, unfortunately out there's a lot of Johns that are willing to pay more for an underage girl. The younger they are, the more they're going to charge, and the more money they're going to make, or the more money that the John is going to be willing to spend on someone who hasn't been out there and is younger. Some may say, how are they transported? Obviously, it's harder and harder to transport these young ladies by train or by plane, although they still do. Usually, those girls that are on automatic, again, a term you can look up when you go and you Google human trafficking terms. But a girl that's on automatic is exactly how it sounds. She's on automatic. She's been trained. She is now trusted to go out on her own, make money, and wire money back to the pimp. And these women will be dispatched all over the United States making rounds. We recovered in Operation Autumn Hope a girl that now we have had this pimp under investigation federally for the last year and a half, 2 years. It's hard to make these cases through human trafficking, so we went another angle. We got him for money laundering. We've identified more than 30 girls that have been working for him, more than 10 businesses that are all shell companies that he's laundering money through. This particular young lady that we came into contact with over this Operation Autumn Hope, she'd been advertised over 11,900 times on the internet in about 361 different cities around the United States. We did a search warrant in a car that she was driving, which was registered back to the trafficker. And inside that vehicle, we found another cell phone along with a calendar, which ended up being a ledger, which had her daily count on how much money she was making every day, because of course she has to keep track of it because she has to send all that money back to him. But when you have a girl on automatic, or you have multiple girls like this gentleman has on automatic, you just sit home and the money just comes to you. Obviously we know that there's expenses, there's travel, there's, but, for example, this young lady here, through our plate reader system, we were able to get hits on her in the last 3 weeks prior to us encountering her. She was in Columbus, she was in Cincinnati, and she was in, she had also been in Independence. Now we got her down in Tremont, but the plate reader picked up on that vehicle at hotels in those 3 different locations that I just told you about. Again, she's not traveling right now. She wasn't at the time, but all these places she could get to via automobile. But again, she's making all this money. It's documented in the ledger, and at some point she's got to wire that money back to him. And for those out there who don't know, that's called wire fraud. So each one of those is a federal charge. This is money gained through illicit business, which is then wired overwired to another account. Typically, it's through like a Western Union, where then they withdraw the money, and then they put that money and they try to figure out how they're going to wash it. So,
John,
go ahead.
I was hoping that you can really talk to them about Autumn Hope and examples in Cleveland. I want them to know that it's happening right here.
So right here. So let's start a little bit prior to Autumn Hope. In 2016, when we established this, well, first of all, in 2009, what really got me hooked was we bought a 16-year-old girl downtown at Starbucks, at the Starbucks on West 6th in St. Clair. Um, Everybody thought, when we fast forward now to, oh my God, it's COVID, everybody's restricted to the home, nobody wants to do anything, everybody's concerned. Not these guys. Um, we've seen a tremendous spike in activity during COVID. I placed a fake advertisement up on one of our, I don't know, 5 websites that we monitor, but over 250 websites that are out there where people can purchase commercial sex. I posted an advertisement on a Friday evening, and within 30 minutes, I was talking to 24 different men. What did we learn through Operation Autumn Hope? Operation Autumn Hope kind of just verified that, you know, it's out there, it's running rampant. We had John Stings that we operated on. It was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 2 weeks ago. We were in Independence. We did John Stings in Independence, Middleburg Heights, Beechwood, and Westlake. And you may ask, well, why did you use those different cities? Well, think about it. What's in those cities? Anybody?
Highways.
Money.
Think about it. Close. The highway's 1, money's 2, but think about it. Why would people go to those cities?
For work.
Think about Independence. Think about Independence. There's 14 hotels in Independence, all with great highway access.
Mhm.
In Chagrin and 271, there's about 6 or 7 hotels over there on either side of the highway.
Mhm.
If you go to Westlake, how many hotels are out in Westlake? It's the same story. Highway access
Yeah.
and a cluster of hotels. You're always going to find prostitution and human trafficking going on in those areas. And then at the same time, we rented an Airbnb while all of that was going on, and we were focused on primarily trying to lure pimps and girls to, you know, victims to our location in Tremont. Because typically what has been going on is that there had been, over the years, there have been so many sting operations occurring at hotels that girls started getting a little leery, and pimps didn't want to send their girls to hotels because they thought it would be a John sting, or their girls would get caught up in a sting. So what we did was we rented a townhouse to help these girls get over that little concern, and hoping to lure more girls and more traffickers to our location. So I don't know if you saw the numbers, but it was pretty successful.
I don't even think they might know about Autumn Hope. Can you just tell them about what that sting was?
So Autumn Hope was a joint. So our task force falls under the Organized Crime Commission of the Ohio Attorney General's office. So we report directly to the Ohio Attorney General, Dave Yost. And so what we did was we have task forces in Cincinnati, Columbus, Youngstown, and Cleveland. We also work very well with the Innocence Lost Task Force, which I was a part of it with the FBI. The Innocence Lost Task Force that's run by the FBI in Toledo. So all of us at the same time, the same week, we're all doing John stings and prostitution operations in the state of Ohio over those same days. In Youngstown's a little bit different because Youngstown is primarily focused on internet crime against children. So they were doing, for those who might remember, who might be old enough to remember, that TV show To Catch a Predator, where we have people online posing as 13, 14-year-old girls that are chatting with these men, and these men are propositioning them for sex. And those who proposition are one thing, but those that show up are another. So that's what they were focused on in Youngstown. I don't have the numbers in front of me. I don't know if you do, Dana, like the numbers of Autumn Hope, but there were a lot of kids recovered. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. Um, as well as pimps identified, victims identified. And you have to understand that everyone that we encountered, every girl that we encountered, we only arrested 2. That's because they had warrants or for some other reason. Most of the others weren't even cited. This was purely to let them know that law enforcement's out here, but we're here to help. At our sting operation, we had victim advocates, we had forensic nurses, as well as the Case Western Reserve Law Clinic there. So it was very unusual for us. It was the first time that we kind of did it this way too, because typically that's stuff that comes later. But since we weren't focused on arresting, citing these girls, we wanted them to see that there's help out there. We're not the bad guy. I mean, when we bring you a forensic nurse and we bring you someone to help you, like if you have warrants, we can, help you. Here's an attorney, they can help you. If there's legal problems that you're running from, they can help you. We just wanted them to know we were there and that there's help if they want to get out of this game. Unfortunately, we ran into some very, very interesting characters. One young lady was, I want to say she was in her late 20s. She had what we call summer teeth. She had some teeth. I think everybody out there knows what I'm talking about. But she was also 7 months pregnant and she was addicted to heroin. When we're talking to her, we found out that this was her 4th pregnancy. She's given up every one of her other children for adoption. She gets paid $3,000 per adoption, but each and every one of her children that she has given birth to have been addicted to some sort of drug. I will tell you that everyone that we provided and offered social services to declined to take advantage of them.
I wonder why, John.
Well, I'm going to tell you something right now. When you deal with as many heroin addicts as I've dealt with, in fact, this was kind of a training scenario for the young people at the Case Law Clinic. The young lady told, one of the young ladies during the interview told the person from the law clinic, they said, look, I'm ready to go to rehab. I'm going to go on Monday. If someone is ready to go to rehab, they're going to go right now.
Yes.
I said, look, go back and tell that young lady that I can get her into a rehab facility right now. It's 1 a.m., but I can get her into a rehab facility right now. Oh, they come up with so many different excuses as to why they can't go. I have to have this. I got to get this done. Even if there's nobody at their house, there's no kids involved, there's no nothing. If there's a heroin addict and they'll tell you they're ready to go, but they're going to go on Monday, you'll never see them again. You will never see them again. It's just an excuse. You have to understand that you have, let's just take, you have a young lady who is a drug user, and drug users we know manipulate people. They manipulate everybody in their world, right? Whether it's their parents, their friends, they're borrowing money, they're crashing here, they're doing this. I'm only going to be here for a minute, and then they end up staying. Next thing you know, you got a new roommate you never knew you was going to get, and you got to kick them out. They burned all those bridges. Then they come up and they meet a pimp, and now they learn a manipulation, a new form of manipulation from this pimp. So now you have manipulation learned from her drug abuse. Now you have manipulation learned from, this is like an expert in manipulation. And they've been able to manipulate, some of them, manipulate their way through the system, whether it be through the social services system, the network of, oh, I need help or I need money, and then they get help, they get a place to stay, but then they go back and do that. They manipulate that. Some of these people, unfortunately, need to go to jail. I hate to say it because we don't like arresting people, but the only way to get off of this stuff is to go to jail and to get court-ordered drug rehab.
Mm.
Sometimes that is the last resort and the only way to get some of these people off of this stuff. And unfortunately, in all of my time that I've been doing this, everybody wants to throw, accolades at all the stuff and the accomplishments that have been done. But the things that remind me the most are the people that I couldn't save. There's a lot of people out there that maybe I've recovered 4, 5, 6 different times, the same person, got them into rehab. They get sober for a little bit, and then they can't cut loose those old friends. They go back with those old friends. They start getting high again, and they overdose, and they're gone. That happened to me with a young lady who was 19. When she was 17, she was Miss Teen Seven Hills. At 18, she was turning 10 tricks a day for a guy over off of Fleet Avenue. And by 19, she was dead from an overdose. So when I say she was from Seven Hills, I want you to understand that this doesn't just happen to people that are on the low socioeconomic scale of our community. This just doesn't happen to people in the projects. This doesn't happen to people, white trash people living over off of wherever, you want to place them in Clark or wherever the case may be. This happens to people in the suburbs. I've recovered 2 young ladies from Rocky River. You name a suburb, and we have encountered victims identified from those different suburbs. So it isn't just happening to people in Cleveland or that's just as a poor thing. No, when you're talking about people getting high and getting, who has access to that?
Mhm.
Who has access to drugs in high school? It's rich people.
Mhm.
Rich white kids have access to drugs because their parents have money.
Mhm.
Their parents are off skiing someplace in Colorado. The kids are home getting high. And what does that turn into? We've had kids that have been extorted in high school because they got drunk at a party and someone took pictures of them
Mm.
that they didn't want to get out. So, and at that point, people aren't thinking rationally. I was at a party, I got drunk and passed out, and someone took some pictures of me. I don't want that to get out throughout the school when we were going to school. So this guy wants me to have sex with this guy or this guy. Okay, I'll do it. Just think about it. Are you really thinking rationally at this point? I mean, I understand that the kids are hard on each other, and you don't want to be construed or labeled as a quote unquote a hoe or easy or something like that. But these kids, instead of just thinking it through, they start doing stuff that they wouldn't consider doing. And then what is it that they need to get rid of that pain of what they're doing? They need an escape from reality. So they start doing drugs. I have not met, I'm sure they're out there, but I have not met one exotic dancer, stripper, whatever you want to call them, that doesn't get high or drink an excessive amount of alcohol because they can't do it in their right mind, go up and dance in front of all these men at a nightclub unless they're high. And then afterward, after it's done, they continue to get high to forget about what they had to do. So when you have a young lady who's...
But wait, John, you
Yeah.
wouldn't come in contact with people who are just like freelancing and, doing it on the side and maybe going to school. Like you wouldn't get in contact with all of those, right?
Oh no, I come in contact with those all the time.
Yeah.
So you have people who are being trafficked, right? Then you have people who are, they call themselves, so you have streetwalkers.
Mhm.
And some of those people are out there, they're walking the street on their own to get high, and some of them they're being trafficked. So you have a streetwalker, you have an escort, and then we have something called providers. Providers are a different classification. They're a higher classification than an escort. Um, they
And an
typically
escort.
have their, huh?
Then an escort or street prostitute?
So you have a street prostitute, then you have escorts, then you
Oh.
have providers.
Oh, okay.
These providers are typically independent providers. Just think of yourself like an independent contractor. Um, they have their own clientele. They usually have a job. So they work a 9 to 5. And then they have their own clientele that they see maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And they get paid. And that's just money they put in their pocket. It's tax free. And that's what they do. I mean, we've come in contact with the lady. Once we let her go, she was like, well, do you mind? This was in a sting operation. She was like, do you mind if I use the bathroom? I have to change to go to work. And I'm like, well, what do you mean you have to change to go to work? She's like, yeah, I got to go to work. So she goes in the bathroom, she comes out, she's in scrubs. I'm like, okay. She's like, yeah, I'm not going to say what hospital. She worked as a surgical tech at a hospital. So this was her part-time job. Some people work at UPS and some people work online. Now there's so many different ways out there that these girls and that these traffickers use and utilize to make money. It's not anymore just about seeing Johns. They've they've expanded their portfolio, so to speak. So have you guys heard of OnlyFans?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, you see these Instagram sensations, right? These Instagram models, whatever, they have these OnlyFans page, and people pay or subscribe to them, if you know what I'm talking about, monthly, to see them posing in the nude, or just for some people have uploaded videos that they may have done, sexually explicit videos that they may have done, and people pay monthly to subscribe to them, or they pay per view to watch their specific videos. There's a website out there called Chaturbate. Has anybody ever heard of Chaturbate? No? Dana, have you heard of, I'm sorry, Professor
Yes.
Hubbard, have you heard of
Oh, no.
Chaturbate?
Yes.
You have heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Chaturbate, for those who don't know, is basically web-based. And you set up an account through PayPal, Venmo, whatever the case is, and you set up your little station, and over webcam you start doing provocative things, whether you're whatever sexually explicit that these guys like, and your thing starts ringing for tokens that are donated to you, which translate into money. And the more the dinging, when you talk to some of these girls, the more the dinging goes off, the more excited they get.
Yeah.
Girls perform, solo shows, or they do other things with partners. So again, these are other ways to make money besides making pornographic videos that they did back in the old days. Now everything's live. It happens now. You get paid now. All this money comes in, as well as them doing their traditional escorting. So, and that's one of the things that we learn when we interview these traffickers before they go to prison, or if they want to cooperate with us. What are they doing to make money? How are they recruiting? A lot of them, went to virtual currency. A lot of money gets laundered through green dot cards. There's a whole lot of different ways that are happening now. And the only way for us to keep up is to have that human intelligence. So we get intelligence from our victims and from pimps that are getting ready to go to prison.
Did you recover any underage girls here in Cleveland?
No, we did not recover any underage girls in Cleveland. However, I have my hands full with underage girls. I can tell you how many. I just took a tip yesterday about a 15-year-old girl from Children's Services that I have to begin looking into. Um, it's really difficult to recover in these sting operations kids, because typically you don't get to see that the young ones on your first go round with the pimp.
Yes.
You have to become sort of like a regular. They have to trust you before they start introducing you to younger and younger
Yep.
people. And that's the stuff that you start requesting. It's almost like when you're, I can't work undercover and be having sex with all these different people. Unlike you can if you're DEA, where you can go and buy dope and start working your way up the ladder. You can't do that in this realm. It's completely different. But what we do and with these stings is that we try to reinforce with these young ladies that, look, you could have went to jail today, you didn't. We're here to help. In return, if you see somebody out there that you know is being exploited, if you see someone out there that you know is underage, would you give us a call? That's really the only thing that we're looking for from them. Obviously, we want them to get out, but if they don't want out, which 100% of the young ladies that we talk to, we're okay, we're fine, and they didn't accept our offer for services. But you never know if someone's going to say, hey, I'm just giving you a call, you help me out, but I saw this girl, she looked really young, she's working for this guy, and this is who he is. And that's what we're looking for. Go ahead, Dana.
Oh my gosh, this is all so fascinating. Could you tell them about, working these hotels and how it works, and how it's in almost every hotel?
Well, I'm gonna tell you, these hotels, we work with a lot of the hotels that are with the Ohio Hotel and Lodging Association, because these hotels don't want this stuff in their building. Okay. With prostitution becomes every felony that you can think of under the sun, from murder down to dope. And they don't want that in their hotels. Excuse me. But it's pretty much in every hotel around, from the higher end to the lower end. You're going to see a different sort of clientele. You're going to see providers go into the likes of the Ritz-Carltons and such like that. You'll see our escorts going into all the other hotels. Even the websites are different. Where Backpage is for escorts, but you have other sites like, well, there's like a couple others out there. Eros is one of them, where that's a higher end clientele, where you're talking about where a regular escort may charge $180 to $200 an hour. You're talking about $1,000 an hour for the ones on Eros. So they're targeting a completely different clientele. So, but when you're talking about, let's say, the likes of the Express Inn, does anybody know where the Express Inn is? It's on Warrensville Center Road in Northfield, behind Northfield Park. The old Thistledown.
Yes.
Okay, you're familiar with that?
Yeah.
That is, pardon my French, a shitty hotel. I mean, we are talking about, not only are the hotel people probably involved, but we know for a fact through our sources that the security guard is also involved, helping to perpetuate this, because they're getting paid. I guarantee you the guy isn't getting paid a lot of money, and he's actually living at the hotel. And you're talking about a hotel that I'm telling you, nobody on this Zoom call would even considering staying at this hotel if they were traveling. I mean, it is the Roach Motel magnified by 100. I mean, but, in fact, we did encounter one of the girls during Operation Autumn Hope, who, by the way, had just had a miscarriage, had just finished bleeding that morning, and was out working that afternoon.
Oof.
She actually resided at the Express Inn, and she wanted me after the end, and she was ready to go. She wanted me to actually talk to her quote unquote boyfriend to explain to him why she wasn't coming home with any money
Oh,
because she uses it just to get high. And sure, I could go after and charge that guy because he knows what he's doing, and he's for promoting prostitution. But back to the hotels. So again, we're talking about a cluster of hotels. I talked to you earlier about the different types in the city, different areas in the city. Um, some hotels are going to be more of a magnet to it than others. The La Quintas, and that's only because you know management doesn't care. So what they do
Mhm.
is typically pimps, escorts, girls will make a reservation online through Priceline or
Mhm.
through some other third-party website to make a reservation. It's much easier that way. Nobody's going to question you when you come in. Typically, girls aren't dressed like you would think, like the typical quote unquote hooker would be dressed. And that's not my term. That's term from TV. Um, Girl come in dressed just like you or I would be dressed right now, or in sweatpants, checking in. But when we train our front desk clerks at some of these hotels, is that it's typically it's unusual for a young lady, especially from to have a local address to be checking into a hotel by herself. And that should be quasi red flag for people. Now, yes, does it happen? Absolutely. Is it legitimate? Sometimes, absolutely. But it should be one of the red flags. Now, you should give us a call when you see like 3 or 4 red flags, but that should be a red flag. Um, so they'll use a third party website to make a reservation. They'll check in, and you'll see a lot of foot traffic. I was just going over some video of a young lady that was forced into prostitution, and she was staying at the Red Roof in Middleburg, and she's forced to prostitute even though the pimp knows that she's HIV positive.
oh my God.
And so I'm going over video from the floor because the Red Room they're very cooperative with us, and they just implement a very, very nice camera system. Um, and I'm just watching these guys go back and forth in and out of this room. She was on the 3rd floor, and obviously I'm not going after her because she was forced into it. Um, but we do have other people that we know of that are out there that have prostituted while they're HIV positive in these hotels. And I can't go forward unless I catch them in the act, unless I get a complaint from a John who's contracted the disease. So back to the hotels. So you have hotels on the strip like that. There's a bunch of hotels for those that live out in Strongsville off of Pearl Road there. There's a bunch of hotels.
Yeah.
And you wonder why there's so many hotels. Pearl Road used to be the main drag to Columbus prior to 71 and interstate or the turnpike in 71 being built. So there were actually 29 hotels on Pearl Road in Cuyahoga County. Some of them are still around, and they're a hotbed for human trafficking at those hotels, those lower end hotels. Because listen, the lower the overhead, the more money the person is going to make, that trafficker is going to make. We've even lowered ourselves, or not we, but the pimp. You go online, these girls will do car dates now. You don't even need a hotel room. They'll do car dates for a certain amount of money. Again, when you're talking about hotels, prices, if, hotels like a Motel 6, the Red Roof Inn, the Highlander Inn, the Express Inn, any sorts of Days Inn, those cheaper hotels is where you're going to find a lot of it. a lot of it. Now, the pimps that we deal with here, mostly in Cleveland, they won't put their girls there unless they're really low end. But if you want higher end clientele, you'll go to the places like a Hilton or the other like 3-star hotels in the area. But to hammer the point home, you see a hotel, there's usually an escort working out of the hotel, period, point blank. And that's all over Cuyahoga County.
So, John, why haven't you been able to, like the Express Inn? We know it's going on probably all the time. Like, why aren't you guys there busting that up? Or it's just useless because they keep.
Well, no, it's hard because you have a lot of people that are involved in the activity, whether it be there's different pockets of it. So you got a person doing it over here, a person doing it in these rooms, a person doing it in these rooms. It's almost like they know we're coming.
Yes.
You know, we can't get there's no clear line of sight for surveillance. You get people out of there, they don't want to talk. They're scared to talk about their trafficker. Again, that goes back to getting them off of the drugs, getting them well, and then they start figuring out what's going on. But that's down the line. It's easy for us to try to set up a date and to go in, but you also want to understand, for officer safety, if I'm the John and I'm going into basically an apartment complex almost, but it's a hotel, and it's all on one level and it's spread out in all these different buildings, I have to go in there by myself to set up a date. Sometimes they're setups for robberies.
Yes.
You walk into the room, because how many people think on this Zoom call that a John is going to report that he was robbed by somebody when he was going to buy illegal sex from a girl, potentially an underage girl? You think that they're going to report that robbery to the police? Hell to the no. Do you think, especially if they're married and they don't want the police to come to their house to do a follow-up, and you're not there, and the wife is like, what were you doing you got robbed at the Express Inn? What were you doing at the Express Inn? So therefore, a lot of those robberies do not get reported. So, so me going in by myself, if I go in and there's other cars trailing behind me, other people are going to know that it's us. So it's just very difficult for those, and it's very difficult to get. We have people that are going to give us some intelligence, but not actual like real-time intelligence of what's going on there right now. So a girl says, someone says, there's a pimp working out of a hotel, and this is his pimp name. What am I supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
Is there any numbers for me to research? How do I contact these girls? How do I set up a date? How do I get this girl to come to me so we can get her out of that situation? And maybe she'll tell us enough that we can go in and we can get a search warrant to go and knock this dude right now. Or can we get someone away from them and they can tell us there's 3 girls that's being held there right now, which gives us enough probable cause and exigent circumstance to go in without a warrant to recover these victims. So that's always that's a hard thing for us.
Okay, so we're running out of time.
I'm sorry.
No, this has been fascinating. Anybody have any last minute questions? Are you just blown away?
It's
I
depressing.
think they're just scared to ask.
Yeah.
No, I think they're just like in shock.
So yes, it happens here. Our first year in 2016, we recovered 130 victims of sex trafficking. And for those that say that, human trafficking only happens to people who are immigrants to this country, it's coming in over the border. Of those 130, probably 5 were from the human trafficking hotline and may have been from out of out of the country. The other 125 is all domestic.
Yeah, in Cleveland. Well, I mean, what do you, who do you
But-
come in contact with? What are the numbers you come in contact with in a year, say?
It's every year in our existence has been over 100. Every year. How many of those are, and what I will tell you based on, because I remember these numbers specifically because of the first year, 74% of those 130 victims were Caucasian females. And most of the adults that we came in contact were addicted to some form of narcotic. And we probably in that year dealt with about 15 children. I indicted a case recently. It was a pastor. I indicted a pastor. I indicted the person that was also supplying him with the underage girls. So we had a young lady who, her name is Joyce Richmond. She hasn't been indicted or she hasn't been convicted yet, but she's still in the system. You can look her up on the county webpage. But she was a home for runaway girls,
Oh,
especially girls from juvenile detention who knew that if they were recovered, they were going to go to ODYS, which is juvenile prison. So they were hiding out with her. So she gave him a safe haven. In return, they were to obviously get involved in prostitution. And one of the Johns that they first encountered was my pastor, Pastor Randy Brown, not my pastor, but a pastor here in a church in Cleveland. So listen, it's just not priests in the Catholic Church, it's pastors as well. I know we played that shell game with the Catholic Church, find the priest, find the pedophile, but here we're also dealing with the same thing. I mean, even in our latest sting here in Operation Autumn Hope, we got a seminary student. I don't know if he's going to be a seminary student anymore. We get all kinds. Mind you, think about this. Who has money to spend to engage in commercial sex? Who are the ones that are perpetuating this? Who are the ones that are driving this?
white collar.
It's males with an expendable income.
Mhm.
It's males that can afford to spend $200 an hour 3 times a week with a girl. I'm not going to say who, but we encountered a guy about a year and a half ago. He was the CFO of a major company here in Northeast Ohio. His family resided in Michigan. He lived here during the week and then went home.
Yeah.
He was driving his Porsche Macan. He had a suitcase full of money, but he's at a Red Roof Inn in Westlake with an escort, paying $150 an hour, not knowing how many communicable diseases he can come up with. People aren't afraid of COVID. These guys are not afraid of COVID. Even on my fake advertisement I put up, I said, I'm COVID-19 free and 420 friendly. They love that. They want to party, they want to get high, and they want to have sex. But it's always people with expendable income. It's athletes, it's doctors, it's lawyers. We got a lawyer from Fairview Park in our latest roundup here. It's, you name it, from any profession, as long as they have an expendable income and nobody's going to worry about where $200, $400, or $600 is going a week. I mean, that's a lot of money if you think about it.
Mhm.
So that's what's going on in Cleveland, girls, ladies, gentlemen.
All right. So I'm sure John will take any questions. I can pass them on to him. As you think about it, just email me and I can pass on some questions. But
Professor Hubbard.
Yes.
Quickly. John, are any girls often like kidnapped and then trafficked?
Well, let's see. I've been doing this since 2000. So let's. One of the things I talk about when I first talk about in a presentation is this isn't Hollywood. This isn't the movie Taken. It is quite frankly, it just doesn't happen.
Mhm.
There's one girl that we are investigating currently right now. She was an adult. She was kidnapped from a strip club and she was held captive. But typically, you don't have guys in white vans, middle-aged, older white men snatching up girls in their white conversion van and taking them and locking them up in the basement. That's just not how it goes. I have not, in as many years, seen one case like that.
I had another professor, Christine Schneider. I don't know if you know her, Dr. Hubbard. She said that she sent her class in throughout Cleveland, shitty areas in Cleveland, into like convenience stores and gas stations with two students, a man and a girl. And one particular girl was a small, petite, blonde hair, blue eyes. And the store clerk was like, oh, that's her, and grabbed her. And basically it was a misunderstanding. He thought that this girl was sent to the location to be like grabbed, like this girl's coming. And yeah, I mean, she was a CSU student or case student.
That's news to me. Did anybody document that with the police call?
I don't know. I mean, this was something she used to do. My professor, she stopped doing it obviously, but it was in a sociology class to see what products were sold throughout areas in Cleveland. And yeah, I guess basically there was one guy, a main guy, and he tells these convenience store guys to grab girls that have a certain profile. And so he like grabbed her and took her in the back, and I'm not sure the result of it. I mean, she was fine. But yeah.
So is this at one
Yes.
area convenience store, or is this in multiple
recall.
convenience stores?
It was one store specifically. I don't know if there was other locations like that, but it was one store, probably like Kinsman or 55th or I don't know, a Fleet. Yeah, I mean, and she was with a white student as well, a male student. I can find out for sure. I mean, and it was
Yeah, have her call me.
Yeah,
For sure.
Have her call me. Listen, if you guys encounter anything like this, or even if you have an idea that something's going on, it doesn't have to be solid. Like, oh my God, I saw someone get, if you have an idea, if your gut just tells you something isn't right, I'll give you guys a number to call. You can call Sheriff's Radio 216-443-6085. See, Miss Kessler, you're writing it down, huh?
this is recorded.
I called you out. I put you on Front Street, we call that. That's Sheriff's Radio. If you call with a tip, they will take your number and they will page us, or they will transfer you directly to one of us here, one of 6 or one of 5 investigators that we have. If we get a page, we usually return the call within 20 minutes.
Dang.
So
All right, you guys.
Of the night.
Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate it. Always interesting stuff, and thank you for all you do. And so, okay, Capstone students, no, Women in Crime students, go look on Google Sites under infographic or under final assignment and check out what's going on there. Okay. All right, John, thank you.
Bye-bye.
John, I have one more quick question.
Oh no. He's
Uh-oh.
gone.
Go ahead.
If you have a moment, do you do anything with like sugar babies?
Sugar Babies, like a
Yeah.
website?
Yes, like I think it's an app.
Well, there's so many out there. There's like 250 different websites that we
Mm.
are trying to, get a grasp of. We typically look at websites like Skip the Games, Mega
Mhm.
Personals, Erotic Monkey, Escort Alligator.
Oh,
Rachel, you all right over there?
The names are hilarious, but
Yeah, but it's something that's catchy, and
Yep.
these guys. So these are all the different. See, the problem is that we knew where everybody was when Backpage was in existence,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
once Backpage was dissolved, and actually we have access to all the Backpage servers still, but so everybody split up. So that's where we required, and we needed our sources to tell us where was everybody going.
mhm.
So of all of these sites, this is where things are focused on, those sites that I just mentioned. Now there's other sites out there that are just really, really hard to get a hold of or get some footing in, because a lot of these sites have learned from Backpage and their servers are offshore somewhere in another country. So they don't have to respond to any of our federal or state subpoenas because their servers aren't in this country. So you have, like Kick, and you have websites and apps like that where the parents don't know about them. These kids are so much more hip to what's going on than their parents.
Yeah.
And when you close the app out, the chat goes away.
Oh,
I set up a date on Snapchat. In order to do that, I have to take a picture with another device every time the person was snapping me, because as soon as I exit out, it disappears. So these are some of the problems that we're having. And as well as, like you said, sugar babies, there are so many apps out there. I can't even begin to focus on one.
So I was at that really super fancy Italian restaurant in Beechwood that's on the ground level of an office building.
You mean Giovanni's?
Crest. I was there about a month ago,
It's
and
like some really fancy restaurant. Okay, it must not have been memorable because you didn't remember the name. But go ahead.
it's my birthday. So there I went to the bathroom and this girl came in and she literally just goes, "I'm a sugar baby. Who are you here with?" And I was like, "Dude, my dad." And she was dating a guy, a regular there. I don't think he was the owner, but she said he knew everybody. Everybody was coming up to him, and she was definitely young.
Well, yeah. So what you're talking about here is these sugar babies. Sounds like it's just a bunch of young ladies looking for sugar daddies.
Right. That's
They're
what it
looking
is.
for somebody. Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
app. So I had a friend
Yeah.
who was ago. When
I'm telling you, it is off the chain out here right now. It's literally, it used to be where, these dating sites you'd go to, whatever. Now it's meetme.com. Now it's, I just want to hook up.
Tinder.
But it's wide open. Now it's just about sex. It's not even it's just like people who want to meet and just have sex.
Yes.
There's so they said, well, let's just, like the website I just talked about, let's skip the games.
Mhm.
Let's
Yep.
just get together and have sex. But even on these dating sites, they would use, sex trafficking emojis to show that, this is a pay for play, buddy. This isn't one of these,
Yeah.
you're going to come and we're going to have a couple dates.
Wait,
But
what
through the
emojis do they use?
emojis, you can, huh?
yeah, right.
What emoji do they use?
You can use, if you just Google sex trafficking emojis.
Of course.
Rachel's like, oh my God. Yes.
Well, I
there
mean, it makes
is-
sense that there's a code too. I mean, it
Yeah.
seems so obvious in retrospect that there would be codes. Why not use it?
Well, absolutely. And just like there's coded language, there's also codes on the internet as to, like young, there's emojis for young girls, there's emoji for, you name it. It breaks it down for you. If you Google and do some research, you'll say, holy, again, this is an underground world that people that live above ground don't really understand. And that's why it's so important to understand the terms and terminology So when you do encounter some of these things, if you have a young lady that talks about my folks, my team, those are trafficking terms. If you hear something, that'd be a red flag. And this is some of the stuff that we talk about to, social workers and people in, hospital settings, that when kids or adults talk like this isn't normal talk. And these are things that you should look out for. So that with a tattoo of some dude's name, and then the phone rings and it's daddy, those are 3 red flags that would probably say, you know what, maybe I need to call because this person might be involved in sex trafficking.
All right, we got to end it there, everybody. Thanks
Okay.
again, John. I'll be in touch for sure.
All right,
Thank
take
you.
care.
Okay.